Thank you everyone for joining us. My name is Joni Parsons, co-creator of Rebel 11, along with Monica Smith. Monica, can you say hi to everyone?
Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us this evening.
Thanks for being here. We created Rebel 11 about 5 years ago, honestly, because women are better together, don't you think? The world is a better place when women support other women. Here at Rebel 11, we have weekly events online and then also retreats around the globe. We're so glad you're here tonight. So I am just thrilled to say that this is our 4th annual event with Ellevate. For the first 3 years, we highlighted women in the wine industry. And tonight we're going to take a little twist on it. And we'll be talking to women here celebrating women in the alcohol industry here in the Pacific Northwest. Everything from wine to a little bit of spirit to cider and beer and a lot more. You're going to be hearing from an incredible group of women. But first, I'd love to introduce Janet Andrews from Ellevate. Janet, would you like to say a few words?
Oh, I'd love to. Thank you, Joni. And, thank you, Rebel 11, for our 4th year of partnership showcasing women's contributions in the alcoholic beverage industry. And thank you to the team for just curating such a dynamic panel this evening. For those of you who don't know about Ellevate, Ellevate Network is a global women's networking organization. We specialize in making networking a more intimate experience. We really want women to be able to build relationships that will support each other throughout all of the stages of our careers. And similar to Rebel 11, we host events. Ours right now, obviously through the virtue of being virtual, are now globally accessible, but we like to showcase our local Seattle flair. And for those of you who are interested in this type of intimate networking experience, we do welcome you to join us on December 14th. We will be having a networking event that we're co-hosting with Seattle's chapter for the Healthcare Business Women's Association, and we'll be featuring a chocolate tasting with Lauren Adler of Chocolopolis. But I want to quickly return to our awesome evening focused on beverages. And Joni, so thank you again to you and your team, and a toast to everyone for curating this. And I'll turn it back over to you. Thank you.
Okay, a toast to everyone joining us tonight. Cheers. I'm so excited for you to hear about these amazing business owners who are changing not just the industry, but really leading the way for other women around the country, here locally and around the globe. Who better to moderate tonight than Amber Davis, who after 20 years in the bar and restaurant industry purchased the Triangle Spirits Bar in Fremont. And she knows so much about the industry, spirits, beer, cider, and so much more. I thought it would be best to turn it over to her to moderate this evening. So Amber, go ahead and take it away. Thank you for joining us and agreeing to be our moderator for tonight.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Joni. Hello all and welcome. We have 4 amazing women with us this evening in just different facets of the liquor industry. And I'm just so excited to see and hear from you gals on your journey, on how you got where you are and how you're impacting and changing the industry. I know as a female business owner on the bar side of it, it's definitely been an interesting journey being a woman in a very much boys club. And I'm sure it is that way in each of your facets as well. I want to take just a moment and introduce the 4 ladies that we have with us tonight. We've got Laura from Stoup Brewing, who is the owner and creative director, is in charge of all things aesthetic. So the spaces that you go into, the branding, all of the merchandise, that's her brainchild. We've got Caitlin with Yonder Cider for us, who is founder and CEO of this. You guys started in a garage, right? This amazing garage cidery.
Yeah, we do have a production facility in Wenatchee. I swear we don't make it all in my garage.
That's good.
Yeah.
We have Shay with Frichette Winery as well with us, who is owner and assistant winemaker. And then Jamie from Fast Penny Spirits, who I've had the esteemed privilege of working with on a few events, who is founder and CEO and just been just an awesome woman to get to know in this industry. I wanted to give everybody the opportunity to kind of introduce yourselves and talk a little bit about how you got to where you were. I mean, I've been a restaurant junkie for my whole life. It's the job I've done since I was in high school. But I don't think that that's the case for all of you, that you started out doing what you were doing when you were 17. Laura, do you want to start us off and kind of tell us how you transitioned into being in the beer industry?
Sure. Well, I've always had a healthy love of beverages, and actually my first career in the alcohol industry was in wine, not as an owner, but in PR and education, and initially sales actually for an Italian wine importer. But throughout that entire career, I had this romantic relationship with my husband, Brad, and who really instilled in me a passion for craft beer. And so when we met in 1994, and I always say that our relationship was kind of built pint by pint, because our entire dating life was happening in the breweries and beer pubs around Seattle, and then of course wherever we traveled. But my career in wine took us far and just furthered my love of the beverage industry in general. And it took us to the East Coast and then took us home again. And once we had started our family and we had children, we honestly just got to a point where we found that our lives in our other worlds, Brad's in particular, were not so fulfilling. And we really started asking ourselves why we weren't spending 100% of our time doing the thing that we loved, which was making and drinking craft beer. So it was a quality of life decision for us to take the leap into starting Stoup Brewing. And we were very fortunate that at the same time, we met a friend in Robin Schumacher, who was our partner in the business. And she was actually, she was going through all of the same life-changing questions that we were, and she had the same kind of passion and thinks about beer in very similar ways that we do. And we were just like, first of all, why aren't we doing this yet? And why don't we do it together? And that's kind of the very short version of how Stoup Brewing was born 8 years ago. This last month.
It's been 8 years. Awesome.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Happy anniversary.
It's crazy. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hard to believe.
Awesome. Thank you. I'd like to go to Caitlin next with Yonder Cider. If you could just tell us a little bit about your journey. I know that you're part of the Source Cider as well, and Yonder. So just talk a little bit about that and how you went from, making cider in your garage to having a facility.
Yeah, I'm one of those people that definitely did not have a straight line to working in the beverage industry. I moved around a lot as a kid, lived in 10 states, business brat, not an army brat, but landed in Minnesota right before high school and homebrewed with my dad as a kid. So I've always kind of had the brewing industry around me in some way, shape, or form, but went to school for broadcast journalism and actually was a TV reporter for a little while in grand old South Dakota. If anybody knows about reporting, that's actually a really good place to start, I swear. So very close to Minneapolis, but eventually got into PR and marketing and moved to Seattle. A lot of the lovely things about being a TV reporter transfer over in storytelling and helping people, get their brands out there, their story out there, and really enjoyed moving to Seattle and being immersed in the world of craft beer, wine, amazing food coming from a place that at the time, not anymore, I say it was like the land of Miller Lite and Applebee's. I moved here and I was like, oh my gosh, what is this? So really dove headfirst into food and beverage in Seattle. Worked for a PR company for a while, then did freelance on the side for a lot of breweries, restaurants around town. Eventually, one of my clients, which was Two Beers Brewing Company, wanted to start a cidery. And I joined on full time as Director of Business Development and Marketing for both Two Beers Brewing Company and Seattle Cider Company, and helped start Seattle Cider. Stayed there for, almost 6 years. Did a stint at Angry Orchard for their Innovation Cider House in upstate New York, and then decided it was time to return to small business. Was really passionate about helping other people build their brands, but was time to build one of my own. So I think there's like 2-year gap in all of our brains, but October 2019 kind of decided to start full force with Yonder, and then the Source became a thing as well. So the difference between the two, Yonder is my outward focused brand that you can find in all the bars, restaurants, and grocery stores around town. The source is business to business. We work with other breweries, wineries, and cideries to produce premium juice and custom fermentation on the cider side for them. And we work with clients all over the country. So that's a little of my weird roundabout way of getting into beverage. Cider, I've worked in all sorts of beverages, but cider is definitely my passion. It is a place for so much growth and so much education. And that's what I love the most about being in this industry.
Awesome. Thank you, Caitlin. Wow. Starting a business right before the onset of the pandemic.
Yeah.
It's like,
true. It was a weird time and still is, but it's been interesting. We'll get into the garage bar later.
Yeah, right. Exactly. It's almost built for it.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you. I'd love to go to Shay next and talk just a little bit about your journey and balancing being a co-owner and an assistant winemaker. How is it going and how did you get to where you are?
Going great. This is a second career for me. Like Caitlin and Laura, I'm from South Carolina. My husband's from Tri-Cities and we met in California. And after dating and being married for a few years, my husband was like, life is good. Let's have a baby. I said, okay. And he says, if we have a baby, we should move closer to our parents. Well, I assumed that meant we were going to move closer to my parents in South Carolina. And he was assuming we moved closer to his parents here in the Tri-City. So obviously we were not on the same page. Anyways, after arguing back and forth, my husband, Greg, just says, you know what? Let's just do what's fair. Let's leave it to fate. Let's flip a quarter. If it lands on heads, we move to Washington. If it lands on tails, we go to South Carolina. Well, I was 2 glasses of wine in, so I thought that was a great idea. Anyways, he flips the quarter and that sucker lands on heads for Washington. So of course I say best out of 5. And he goes, no, we agreed wherever it landed, that's where we're going to move. Long story short, we were packing up our bags. I left my job as a corporate trainer. He left his job as an IT, and we decided we were going to start something new that gave us goosebumps. And we fell in love with Red Mountain and fell in love with wine. And so since we really wanted to make wine on Red Mountain, as we were looking for places, we found there's nothing for sale. So we just knocked on doors asking people if they would sell to us, and everybody said no. In fact, the property we have, those folks said no to us 4 times before saying yes. So I say we pestered them until they said yes. But at any rate, they said yes. So we bought the little 5 acres. We lived in the little house that they lived in for over 20 years. We have their storage shed that we remodeled, made our tasting room, and then we built our production facility out back. So we live here, work here. That baby that my husband suggested we have, we did have that baby. He's 9. His name is Jaden. If you ever look at our logo, it's an F for Frichette, but if you turn the logo, actually, it's an F for Frichette, but if you turn it upside down, it's a J for our son, Jaden. So for me, like Caitlin was saying, she was just like, well, I didn't have a straight line to alcohol. I didn't either. 20 years as a corporate trainer. And here I am making wine in one of the best American viticultural areas you can ever imagine. So I'm loving it. Just getting done with harvest, and I'm getting the opportunity to be on this platform with these amazing women that I stalk and follow now, who I know will be my new BFFs. I'm just delighted to be here. So thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you. Red Mountain is spectacular. I love that area over there. I have a extended family who have a small winery over in Benton City. Like, I love the area there. Thank you. And what a crazy journey. A coin toss.
Oh,
There's
yeah.
No way. I wouldn't have done it.
Have a couple glasses of wine. I bet you would.
Yeah, I guess a few glasses of bourbon, I would have been like, okay, let's do it. All right. Last but not least, we have Miss Jamie with Fast Penny Spirits. And I know a little bit more about your story and your journey from the tech world into the wonderful depths of flavor that is the amaro industry. I just wish you could just share a little bit about your journey and how you got where you are.
Yeah, so after over 20 years of being in tech, digital, creative, all things around online experiences and in-store experiences, I was ready for a change. And I happened to be having a little glass of amaro at the end of the night over at Rob Roy in Seattle, and with my husband, and we started talking to the bartender and asking about American made amaro. And he said, yeah, we have a couple, and he served them to us. And we said, well, yeah, these aren't bad. But they're not. I grew up really loving Italian made amaro. And so my heritage is Italian, and in my 20s, I traveled through Italy and I really fell in love with amaro, and I would go back and go try different regions because it's super regional, and you can really learn the terroir of the different towns that you go to by drinking their amaro, as well as wine, of course. And so we were drinking it, and a little bug kind of went into my head, and I thought, well, I think there's really a market for more of an Italian American made amaro that's more complex. And so I just started playing around in the kitchen. I leveraged Brad Parsons' book a lot to start, his amaro book. I made a couple of his concoctions, and one of them I called swamp water. It tasted really good. It looked really bad. But it gave me the confidence to then start the company. So I started in August of 2017, and then just started working on the recipe. And it took over 2.5 years to do that. Started with just individual tinctures of over 100 botanicals, just so I could taste each one and figure out how to balance it, and ended up at 46 in the end. Yeah, and in June of 2019, I brought on Holly Robinson, who was a co-founder of Big Gin. So that was really awesome. I was still working full time. This was my side gig, my side hustle, for almost 3 years. And so, yeah, she did a lot of the work on getting us licensed and all of that while I continued working on the recipe. And then we finalized on the recipe in the kind of the springtime of 2020, got it approved by the federal government, and then launched in July of 2020, right in the midst of all the pandemic. Yeah, we had to definitely shift all of our strategy on how to launch. So,
gosh, I mean, yes, constantly.
Yeah.
I remember when you guys first launched, I was like, okay.
Well, you were one of our early supporters, so thank you.
You're welcome. It's wonderful juice, and we're neighbors. It helps.
Yeah.
Well, gosh, awesome. You know, when Joni asked me to do this, we were kind of talking about the bones of how we wanted the conversation to go, and really focus on you 4 women and your amazing impact in your local communities and just on this industry as a big picture. And so I kind of wanted to start off with a little bit of a big picture question for all of you. You know, as we've seen more and more women in positions of leadership in large companies, you know, looking at Woodford Reserve with a female master distiller, Michter's with a female master distiller, and all of these big companies really putting women in large roles that just hasn't been the case in decades past. I want to know kind of how you guys are seeing this global shift impacting your journey locally and in your businesses, and how you think women are kind of changing the world in this industry as a whole. You know, what are we bringing to the table that's different, that's causing kind of a shift on a big picture? Do you want to start us off, Laura?
You always having to go first.
It's because you're on my left, and I'm like reading left to right.
Right around the clock.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think I'd like to think that all of us are a part of what is even creating the shift at the larger level, because the more of us that start our own small businesses, and the more of us that empower the women that are around us within our own businesses, that just grows opportunity for women everywhere. Because we always talk about, and in particular, Robin, who in addition to being an owner of Stoup Brewing is also a brewer, right? And brewing is still to this day very much a man's world. So the fact that we can represent as a women-owned company, and that women can see us in these roles and see Robin Brewing, it just opens the opportunity for them to think like, oh my gosh, I can do something like that too. And I think that this has an outward spiraling effect, and then of course an upward mobility effect, and bigger companies are noticing, and more women are putting their names in the hat and pursuing these opportunities and not feeling like doors can close on them. And if they do, they'll push back even harder. And I just think in terms of what women bring to the party, I just think that we're uniquely communicative, we're collaborative, we have a relatability. Like in your first introduction, as I'm listening to, Caitlin and Shay and Jamie, and I can just relate so much to a part of each one of their stories. And that just kind of builds a camaraderie that we foster so easily. And that kind of camaraderie also fosters ideas. And it's all just circular, and it just continues to spiral and build. And a lot of creativity comes out of that, and the pushing forward of new ideas, and most importantly, a different perspective. And if we are pushing our own unique perspectives onto our businesses, that is reflected in the choices our businesses make. And then our customers can see those choices being made and those perspectives being lived. And that creates a more welcoming environment for all of the people on the other side too.
I totally agree. I mean, absolutely. Caitlin, do you have anything that you want to add into that? And maybe also how you think that businesses are having to change how they operate because of the amount of women who are moving into this leadership role?
Yeah. And so, I mean, cider is a lot like beer, right? I went into cider thinking it would be more women, and it's not. And so it's very similar. But one of the things I'm seeing with it is there's more opinions, and there's more variety of opinions, whether that be, male, female, different backgrounds, different cultures, it's driving a conversation of not just let's put out a product. It's driving a conversation about why are we putting out a product? How does it look? There's a lot more attention being given to how a product looks on the shelf, how it's presented on social media than anything ever before. And that's a really big deal. And I feel like there's bigger conversations being had because a lot of women are in these powers, these positions of power. And it will only continue to shift the way the conversations have been happening over time.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, agree. The attention to detail on packaging and presentation and use of social media, I think, is definitely shifted having more women involved in the conversation. Shay, do you have anything you'd like to add?
I think that there's what I'm noticing is more of the, well, what about? And what I mean by that is that women are more empowered to ask, well, what about Laura over there? Well, what about Tanya over there? Whereas before I came into wine, I was working in manufacturing, which is a male-dominated industry, making power tools and door locks. And, I saw that because I was in leadership development and I was an executive business coach there, I had the opportunity to see talent development plans and succession planning, and had a great insight into the organization just on talent and results. And I saw so many women that were so talented, but they just weren't moving. And, they just weren't in leadership roles when I just felt like they were incredibly deserving. But I also saw that there weren't as many women saying, well, what about, what about Joan over here? What about Lisa over here? And I'm seeing that so different today, even in wine. That when it comes to positions of leadership, whether it be in the vineyard, head viticulturalist or head enologist or head, white winemaker, head red winemaker, there's a, well, what about, and that's coming from women feeling more empowered. What was eye-opening for me as well, I'm chair of our regional chamber of commerce. It's one of the largest chambers in the state of Washington. And with that board, the leadership there has been extremely deliberate in looking at diversity and inclusion. And I've been incredibly impressed at the makeup of this board now. If you look at a photo of this board, 10 years ago versus a photo of the board now, I mean, it's just so eye-opening. And a lot of that has to go to what I'm just calling the, well, what about? Well, what about? And I think that that's coming from women who are finding their voices to promote other women.
I love that. Well, what about? That's awesome. I'm stealing that from you. I'll give you credit. I love that one a lot. Just a change of perspective of how you're looking at what you're doing. Well, what about this? That's excellent. Jamie, anything that you'd like to add or share?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with everyone. I mean, I agree with all of that. I think what women do is we tend to think about kind of the holistic picture, a little more of the experience. So the experience is the packaging, the experience is coming to the distillery or winery or tasting room. The experience is coming, drinking it and how you feel. What's in the product. Is there a product that's made for you? So when we were thinking about amaro, we thought about it being approachable. We wanted to start with an approachable amaro so we can get more people into the amaro category, loving amaro and trying different amari. And I think, you know, the other thing is women naturally love to collaborate with each other. And so we have a little collaboration going with Yonder right now, which we're super excited about.
I was going to tell you, I'm dropping it off on the 17th, just so you know.
And want to collaborate more. And so I think there's all this creativity. Like I just had another idea while we're on this call that I wrote down. I have a pad of paper next to me. So if you see me doing that, it's because if I get inspired, I just want to make sure I follow up on it because I forget.
Right there with you.
Yeah. But yeah, I think it creates more innovation. It creates a more human experience and a more inclusive experience, getting more women involved.
Can I add something to that? I think
Please.
Jamie's like spot on because I was just in Oaxaca tasting mezcal. We went on this like my husband and I with this one industry guy taking us around, and we went to one female mezcal producer, and the experience there was so different and so thought through and so special in comparison, just from the moment you walked through the door to the mezcal you tasted to the bottle you were given. It just was this holistic approach to the entire experience, and it was so vastly different from the others we visited.
Awesome. Does anybody have anything else on this topic they want to kind of add now that we've all gone through? Wonderful. Let's move on. You know, one thing that has been amazing that I've noticed with my like fellow female bar owners and leaders in the spirits industry is that we're more prone to be involved in giving back to our community in some sense on a local level, you know, whether it's reaching out to the people who are in need in our immediate community, or, you know, doing an outreach program or some sort of fundraising that's a little bit bigger. And so I just want to, you know, kind of know what you guys are doing to change how you're supporting the industry and how you're creating a more inclusive community within your industry. Caitlin, do you want to take this one first and give Laura a little break being number one?
Sure. Yeah, so we're about a year old. So, you know, everything's new to us. And so we are continuing to learn. Community for us is a little bit different. And I'll talk about the garage bar for a minute. We opened up in August of 2020, not knowing what was going to happen. We had plans for a full tasting room. Obviously, that wasn't going to be a dream that came true. So weirdly, we opened up in our garages to go. And you can walk down First Avenue and Finney Ridge and see a little Yonder Bar. It's open right now, and get cider and hot cider to go. And we're selling cider and trying to get our brand out there, but built Yonder Bar in a way to give people a little bit of light in a time that was pretty dark. You know, you couldn't go anywhere, really. You could go to the breweries. I went to Stoup all of the time during the pandemic. It was my place to go. And I continue to every day when I'm done working at our tap room. But it was really amazing to be that close to people. And even if they didn't buy cider, we had dog treats for the dogs, we had suckers for the kids, and we had a friendly wave for everybody that walked by. And even that was amazing. And when we needed community, they came out for us when a neighbor tried to shut us down. And so, you know, we do a lot of fundraising for the Finney Ridge Neighborhood Association and some other organizations. But for us, community has been what not only has built Yonder, but saved us and helped a lot of people in this neighborhood come together in a time that was really hard. So we wouldn't be here without community. We wouldn't be here without our little bubble that we live in, and then the people that started to come as well. And that that is honestly what Yonder has been built on. And I wouldn't trade that for the world.
Awesome. Yeah. I mean, it was pretty amazing to see the community support for small businesses like all of ours in the pandemic, and really how people came out to rally. And you're just like, we had people dining on our patio in the pouring rain, having dinner. And I'm like, are you serious right now? Like, I don't even want to go outside and serve you, but thank you.
Yeah, I think, it like all of us, I know, went to places because we know what it meant. We know what it meant to go have a pint, to go sip amaro on a dock, in the shipyard, to like have a glass of wine somewhere. It meant the world to the business owners, and the amount of community that came out of that and the amount of support that people showed during that time just to help us all get through was outstanding. Yeah.
Awesome. Shay, do you want to field that next on what you're doing within the Red Mountain Winery community and just around you on how you're kind of changing the narrative?
Sure. When Greg and I were knocking on doors to find a spot on Red Mountain, after being crazy discouraged and almost giving up so many times, we would try and hit the wineries out here before they closed, and we go in with our tail between our legs. And the wineries here are the ones that were saying, keep going, just keep, have you knocked on this door, have you talked to this person, don't give up. And so that really lit the fire under us and made us want this more. And when we were first opening, we were almost not going to open as the county came in. They're just like, well, this doesn't really look like a winery. You can't open because of the restrictions up here. We are zone ag. And my neighbors over at Kiona randomly called me up, and they were just like, hey, we heard through the grapevine you need some equipment. We got our forklifts ready to go. What do you need? We're bringing it over. And then Terra Blanca did the same thing. And so that I was very emotional around that, because I was just like, gosh, here are these two wineries that, and I had no idea like who reached out and said anything, but they were willing to just be like, no, you are going to open, like this is about to happen, and we're going to rally and make sure that you are successful. So I see that throughout the wine industry anyways. We've lent equipment, pig bins, we borrowed pig bins. My neighbors down the street, if they have a huge order in and they don't have enough packaging, it is so cool when they're just like, do you have, a pack of case shippers? And we are happy to be able to help them out with that. So I think that we're just in such a perfect neighborhood. We also, taste room managers get together for forums on what our consumers are seeing and asking for. Winemakers get together. I was just at one of my BFFs who is a winery, Barnard Griffin, and I just went to say hi, and she's like, let's just taste through some bins. Let me know what you think about this, and what's happening over there at Frichette. You guys need anything? Outside of that, one of the things that I love doing is empowering women and doing the but what about? Being on the board of the Regional Chamber of Commerce, when we were looking for board nominations, that was the first thing I thought is, who's not represented up here? Do we have enough diversity on this board, and who do I know that I can be their voice and help them, because we need as many voices rallying for small business as possible. And then when the chamber was looking for, they were just like, hey, we'd love to have this wine, opportunity for one of our big events. My first thing was, let me find women in wine, because this is first off, it was a women in business conference. Hello. If we're looking for wine representation, why not women in wine? I mean, yeah. So I was fired up to be able to have women representing brands there. So like someone said earlier, when it comes to community and collaboration, I think that those are probably two words that best describe some of the, what I do and just what my passion is.
Awesome. Hello, it's a Women in Wine event. Like, isn't it so funny how that seemed weird that you were the one who thought that? Like, who else would be there? Oh man. Jamie, how about you?
I just lost my train of thought, just to be honest.
That's okay. Here, wait, you know what helps? Let's all just take a sip. Let's just take a sip,
Yeah.
Regroup a second. Cheers, everybody.
Really enjoying Shay's story, so I just lost.
That's okay.
So
We can
giving
make-
back, we're talking about giving back. So
Yeah, how you're impacting your community locally, and how you're kind of changing the idea of what that means, you know, being a female in the amaro, in the production side of things, and how you're giving back and kind of changing that community.
there's a variety of ways. I mean, starting the business, one of the big things that made me want to start a business was to be able to give back more than I could as an individual. And so from the very beginning, I wrote in the business model a 3% give back of bottle revenue. I knew I wasn't going to make profits for a long time, so I didn't do it on profit. And we've now since named that the Pretty Penny program. And we partner with nonprofits that empower women, our community and industry. And right now it's Ladies Who Launch, a pretty awesome group. And last quarter it was Vital Voices. And so we do a combination of national and local. We do a lot of in-kind donation too, just to community groups. We wanted to support the arts and performing arts in particular, because they were so hard hit from the pandemic. And so we did give back and donation to, you know, different groups like Ensemble Theater, Book It Repertory Theater, and so forth. We also really like people that are just trying to get, you know, make some money and do pop-ups, and, you know, they have wonderful recipes and whatever. It's been fun to support them at our distillery. It's been fun for all of us, I think. And great meeting like these entrepreneurs that are, you know, just getting into it or have been in it for a while and maybe doing something a little bit more on their own. And so those are the main ways that we do it. And then of course, just being here and listening to stories and being a welcoming, hopefully a welcoming place to visit. So.
Awesome. I think too, like just having these kind of panels and being a participant are making such a huge impact as well, along with that. Laura, how about you, love?
Yeah, I mean, once again, everything that everyone is saying resonates so much. What Caitlin was saying about a community, for us, when we were choosing the where for Stoup Brewing, it was very intentional that we wanted to be part of a neighborhood and we wanted to serve our local community. And the three of us, Brad, Robin, and I, often discuss like our happiest moments. And of course, it's been really challenging the last couple of years, but our happiest moments were always just sitting in the middle of the tap room and looking around and just seeing so many people enjoying the beer we made, but enjoying it with the people in their lives and just seeing all of that community happening. And then to echo exactly what Jamie said, one of the most gratifying things for me as a business owner is that I can do so much more than I can do or than I was ever able to do as an individual. So I love how intentional we can be about the organizations that we are supporting. And we are very involved in so many things in our community, but Robin and I especially are very often motivated to support, you know, the organizations that are supporting women. So, you know, we've worked in the past with REWA, and most recently with Nuestra Casa over on the east side of the mountains, just to empower immigrant women and to help them build their own futures. We have a greenhouse in our beer garden that we sort of implemented last winter, which was kind of a warm, safe place for people to gather, but there's a charitable component to every greenhouse reservation where our customers, when they book, can actually choose the one of 5 organizations that they're supporting. And so we look to like Country Doctor because we want to break down barriers to healthcare for women. The Ballard Food Bank, because if you're supporting families, you're definitely supporting women in our local community. And we kind of run wild with it, I think, because it's really hard to say no when an amazing organization in need approaches you. So sometimes I think that we should be a lot more focused on where this money should be going, but we just tend to be very responsive to to organizations that share the same values that we hold as individuals and as a business, and those values that are also important to our employees. So yeah, it means a lot to be able to do that. It has always been one of the things I feel most gratified about as a business owner versus an individual within my community.
Yeah, I love that, what you're able to accomplish as a company now, as opposed to your impact as a single individual. It's pretty amazing to see how far it can actually go. Oh man. So just a little kind of to grow off of that conversation. I know we started touching a little bit on some of the organizations we like to donate to. And I know Pretty Penny was kind of my thought on this, just things that you're doing and building in your business to continue to give back to your community. Is there anything that any of you want to add on that as far as organizations you love to work with? Or, Jamie, I think you guys do it on a monthly basis or a quarterly basis?
We do quarterly. And then if we have special events or dinners, we love to do an additional give back. So for our anniversary party, because we didn't get to have a launch party because it was 2020, we did an anniversary party with a smaller group of guests that were all vaccinated. And we gave to What the Funk, which is a BIPOC burlesque show. I mean, they perform all around. They specifically perform in Ballard. There's a new theater down there, in there. I say down there because it's down the stairs. But that was really fun. I just reached out to my burlesque friends and said, who really needs some support? And they said, What the Funk is doing some really cool stuff. And so we were able to do a donation through the anniversary party, which was super fun. And also just get people that were there to think about the performing artists and give back even more from the anniversary event, just participating. So there's fun stuff like that. And we look at that for like dinners we do with different restaurants and different chefs. And if we can include wineries or cideries or breweries or what have you, I think it's super fun.
Awesome. Any of you, Caitlin, Shay, Laura, anything else you want to add on that topic?
Well, for us, we donate to about 24 nonprofits a year. There's some that are very consistent. Children's, because our son was airlifted when we were not even 4 months into our business. And if they would have had us pay for that and that stay, we wouldn't be in business. And so for us, that's one that is automatic. And then the American Heart Association, because heart disease kills so many women, especially in the African-American community and the Latino community. So we started an event called Wine and Art Saves Hearts, where we donate there. And then we do some stuff for like our local food bank growing stuff. But then outside of that, it's just organizations that reach out to us and that we feel we can support in the community.
Awesome.
Yeah, again, new. So we're new to it, but we've been donating a lot to like the Finney Neighborhood Association, the Ballard Food Bank, but something we're looking into is how we offer our space to nonprofits, because I think that's always a challenge for nonprofits. Yes, funding is a big one, but having a space that's large enough to host an event or to corner off for something that they're wanting to do. We have a large outdoor space in our new tap room in Ballard, and we want to be able to offer that up to people to use whenever. And so we're trying to figure that out right now. So if anybody has any ideas, please let me know. Laura, I love the idea of like when you rent a space, portion of it going, or the rental fee going to a nonprofit. That's amazing. So those are things we're trying to think through right now, because it's hard for these nonprofits right now, not only in the funding, but how do they get people to pay attention to them?
Yeah. Laura, anything else you want to add?
Well, and then there are, of course, always the schools. I mean, the schools are constantly, which is sort of a sad state of affairs, right? Our public schools are constantly having to raise funds. And so how can we support not only the schools in our immediate neighborhood, but also, equity across the Seattle school district? But so we never say no to a school auction. And then the artists, just echoing what I think Jamie said too about hosting. It's been a while. We always had this really wonderful holiday marketplace where we hosted local artisans and they could sell for the holidays at the same time that families were coming in to get pictures taken with Santa Claus. But that has been on hold, obviously, for the past 2 years. And I'm not sure Santa's coming out again this year. So we are also trying to think like, how do we, how can we continue to support these artists? But so many of the artists that would participate in an event like that are women.
Yeah. I think my hound dog has finally stopped. He's asleep, so we shouldn't have it.
Time. My dog's been throwing his body against the door.
I gave them
Trying to come
frozen
in.
peanut butter Kongs, so I think it
Oh.
worked.
My
Yeah,
husband and
take
dog have been
Kongs
relegated to
and
the
fill them
basement.
with peanut butter and freeze it.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Freeze it. I haven't heard that.
Oh yeah, because then it takes them forever.
Yeah.
It's wonderful.
I'm
Yeah,
gonna show this real
exactly.
quick. Somebody was asking about the female-owned mezcal producer in Oaxaca. It's brand new. Oh, is that backwards for you guys?
I don't think so.
No,
No.
Looks good.
is
so
it
yeah.
supposed to start with an R?
Yes.
Yeah, it's forward.
Looks backwards on mine. So this is the female mezcal producer. She opened up
Awesome.
about 7 months ago, I'd say. So really new.
Very cool.
I'll type it in there.
I want to do
why-
a hotel tour at some point, so I'm going to ask you for some notes.
Yeah. I've just been like recently broadening my palate to mezcal. It's such a crazy dip in the agave world. So I wanted to wrap up with two more things. It looks like we're getting close to 6 o'clock. I wanted to kind of see if you guys had any words you live by, words of advice you would give to any women who are looking to take the jump into small business ownership. I've always relied on the idea, the mindset that somebody else's success does not mean my failure. And so if there's anything like that, or just words of advice that you would give to someone who's looking to maybe change their career completely or to move forward in the career that they're doing going forward. Shay, do you want to kick us off on this one?
Wow, I'm like Laura. I was just like, "Whoo, okay, I probably won't go first for this one, so I'll have time to really."
I got all of you.
Let's see. Well, I guess I would say, I think that I probably give the advice that that I'll take myself, because I'd like to start another business, not a wine business, in the city that I'm in. And for me, I am at the stage where I'm really doing my homework and connecting with other women who are in the business. It's basically opening an ice cream shop, a creamery. And so that's what I'm doing. And I'm not accepting fear because I think sometimes that can be that can paralyze us from moving forward. And so that's what I'm doing, is just doing my homework and networking and asking questions and, sharing that's what I'm doing, and I'm not going to let fear stop me.
Awesome. Laura, words of advice, words to live by?
I think it's really interesting that Shay brought that up, because I was going to say, think about what your worst. It's interesting that she brought fear up, because before we went on this adventure, Brad and I when we were deciding whether or not to take the risk on our side of things, we asked ourselves what the worst case scenario was. And Brad's family has a house on Lake Coeur d'Alene, and in front of they have a big house that they live in, but there's a teeny tiny little cabin, like right down on the lake. It's probably about 400 back square feet. And at the time when we had to put the house and everything else on the line, we were like, well, worst case scenario, we lose everything and we have to live in a little tiny cabin on the shores of an amazing lake. And so we thought, that's not a terrible worst case scenario. We're going to accept that. And so we took the leap, and I will never regret taking that leap. I mean, we were chasing a dream and we made it happen. So if you have that dream, you have to take the leap. And as long as it's a leap into something that you care a lot about, that you personally love, your reserve of energy will be far deeper than it might be, you know, for the daily grind. And so I think just channel your own interests, channel your own passions, and put them out there. And then, like Shay said, you know, never stop asking questions, never stop networking, and it can happen, but you have to take the leap.
Yep, you got to face the fear.
You do.
Caitlin, how about you?
Yeah, I mean, the fear is real, right? Like it's there, but I left Seattle Cider being like, I'll never start another cidery. Like, no way, because that means I would have to do it on my own. And so I moved to Angry Orchard, and I was unhappy there because I was working for a big corporation and not moving. Like, all these amazing ideas were in my head and they weren't going anywhere because there were so many layers of things. And so I turned to my husband one day and I was like, I think I want to start my own cidery. And he goes, you know, we've been waiting for like me and all your friends have been waiting for like 2 years for you to say that, right? Like, we all know, and you're going to do it, and you should. And so it's just having that faith and belief in yourself. And the other part of it that I always tell people, and that I always pride myself on, and the advice I always give to other women and just people in general, is never stop asking questions. I've been in cider for 10 years, and every day I learn more. And that is my favorite part about Beverage. That's my favorite part about owning a business, whether it's learning more about carbonic maceration, or whether it's learning more about how to deal with employees, or any of the and all. Every day is a new adventure, and I never will know everything. And that is a great thing to me. So never be afraid to ask the question, no matter what group you're in or how intimidating the people are. They will respect you more for asking it and wanting to learn about it.
Awesome. Yeah. I mean, I literally have written down everything that the three of you just said. It's just been wonderful. Jamie, I'm sorry, you've got a hard job now. You had three really good answers before you.
I love the curiosity, and I love the asking questions. I love all of it. But I think the thing that has gotten me through what I have been going through is just taking the next small step. Literally, like, it's overwhelming at times, like figuring out the amaro recipe. It took 2.5 years. There's days where I was like, I don't know if I'm going to get there. And I was like, nope, you're going back in. You're going to take the next step. We're trying to be B Corp certified. That is overwhelming. We're taking the next step. We're just doing stuff. And now we're doing crowdfunding. And it's like a completely overwhelming. And we're doing the next step. Like, that's how, like, you just keep taking these steps, and all of a sudden this momentum hits, and all of a sudden you're there, and it's amazing. But if you ever like think about, oh my God, I need to get over here, and what are all the things I need to do there, you'll freak yourself out. Like, it will be so hard to get there. So you know where you want to go, you're gonna get there. Just take the next step.
I love it. I feel like all three of your guys' answers are very much in the vein of perseverance and just kind of focus forward on what you're doing. It's pretty amazing to hear. Okay, so my last question, since this is the women behind the drinks that we love, what are you sipping on this holiday season? What is your go-to beverage as we transition from summer into fall and then into like Christmas holiday? So it could be what you're drinking now, or what's your Thanksgiving punch recipe, or what are we doing? Caitlin, you get to go first on this one. What are you having?
Ooh, okay, Jamie, sorry, I'm going to steal it from you, but we are doing a collaboration with Fast Betty Spirits, and it is what I will be drinking because it is my favorite thing, and it takes my favorite cider we make, which is our Cashmere, which is a Negroni inspired cider. It's got cranberry, dark cherry, bitter orange in it, and it's delicious on its own. But got the chance to meet Jamie and Holly, and we have been working on a blend that is going to be their Americano with our Cashmere, and it's going to come out in cans, and it is going to be so delicious. And we are very excited about it. So I cannot wait to sip that this all winter.
Oh, that sounds like it's going to be the perfect like winter seasonal spice bomb. I love it. All right, Shay, what are you sipping on this holiday season?
It sounds like I should be sipping on what Caitlin just described. Yum. Hello.
We'll ship you some.
When can we all get our hands on that? Well, so I love a great cocktail, but I'm just not that great at making cocktails. So Jamie, I know we've been trying to get together. I'm going to have to come over and see you so that we can get me on board with some of these beautiful cocktails. But you know, the easy thing for me is wine. I think that for the holidays, wine can complement food in so many ways. We have a wine called Punctual, which is, we call it punctual because timing is everything, and any time is the best time to have a glass of Punctual. So that's going to be what I'll be sipping on, just because it's such an easy drinker, and I don't know, have easy access to it.
Awesome. Jamie, what's your go-to this season?
Besides what they just said.
Yeah, you can't choose those. Those have already been taken.
There's always the classics that I love, like the Manhattans and Negronis. But I want to experiment too with like some other things. Like I love a milk and honey at the end of like a cold night. And I'm thinking oat milk and Americano could be a good. Honey. And so hot toddies, like we're playing with a lot of hot toddies. I've just been feeling really cold recently. So the things that keep coming to me are like, how can I put a warm cup in my hands? So probably all of those things.
Anytime you want to come do R&D with me, you let me know. I've got a little bit of product we can play with.
Yeah, that'd be fun.
All right, Laura, what's your holiday go-to?
I am so bad at these questions, and I have to say I'm very situational by nature. So it entirely depends on what I'm doing. I drink more beer than any of the other beverages, but I love all of the beverages. I'm a Negroni girl when it comes to cocktails, really. But I have never stopped loving wine, spent 20 years in that industry, and wine is my go-to if I have a plate of food in front of me. And then, there's room for everything. But if I really want to talk about Stoup, then I have to say that I vacillate personally between the IPAs and the porters. And so since we're in winter spirit, I will be drinking a lot of our porter, which was actually one of the most important beers for all three of us when we were setting out, a beer that we decided that we wanted to make. And we wanted to make it year round, and we didn't care that porter from other breweries was disappearing from store shelves. We just decided that it would be a passion project for us. And so far we can keep it going, and we have year-round porter lovers too. So
I'm pretty sure your porter got me through last winter.
I'm so glad to hear that.
Yeah.
It's a comforting beer for sure.
Well, awesome. Ladies, thank you so much for spending an hour this evening. Joni, I want to touch base with you. Do we have any questions in the chat that we haven't gotten to?
There was a couple of questions. Caitlin, first of all, why was the neighborhood not supportive?
So funny story, the neighborhood overall was super supportive. We had one neighbor who lives about 7 blocks away from us who made it his personal mission to shut Yonder bar down. He called the liquor control board upwards of 20 times. He called the cops on me. He called the health department. He called anyone and everyone he could. I eventually found out who he was, because fun tip, if anybody ever complains about you and they email city council, that is public record. So you can very easily find out who it is by putting public records request in. So never called him out, never talked to him. He refuses to talk to me, even though he knows who I am. But we didn't let it put us down. So we ended up closing for 3 weeks, but before we closed, we put out a call to the neighborhood and gathered over 5,000 signatures in support. And worked with our local city council to get a bill passed called Bringing Business Home, which allowed for not only Yonder, but other businesses like ours, doesn't have to be booze, can be anything, to incubate within their garages and their homes for a year before moving, hopefully into a commercial space. So allowed what would traditionally be a single family zoned area, people to use their garages to pop up businesses and see if their business was viable. And if it was, awesome. They could sign that 10-year, 7-year,
Yep.
5-year lease with
Caitlin,
confidence.
that
So,
is such an amazing story. And look at what you've done for other people who are starting businesses, both men and women moving forward. So I want to thank you on behalf of everyone for doing that. That is
Thanks.
such a great story. And there was another question, which actually I wrote. Jamie, you mentioned that you were giving back to burlesque. Why burlesque?
Well,
It's such a great story.
So a few years ago, I was sitting in the wine bar of DeLille in Kirkland, sipping on, I don't know how many glasses of wine it was by then, but with some friends. And one of my friends said, "Hey, I just signed up for this burlesque class. Do you want to join?" And I said, "Well, sure, that sounds like great exercise." Because I thought it was like pole dancing exercise, but it was burlesque. And I was like, that sounds fun. And so we went to the class and found out it was to create professional burlesque dancers. And all of a sudden I was like, oh my God, what are we gonna do? And we both looked at each other and we went, oh my God, it scares the hell out of us. Let's do it. And so we did, and you create your whole persona. You do, in that class, you create a couple of, you have to choreograph a couple of acts. And so I became Veloce Von Perla, and then my good friend became Centime Bijou. And veloce means fast in Italian, and centime means penny in French. And we would do duet performances together, which was super fun. And so we would go as Fast Penny. And I could not believe how empowering it was on the stage, that when I started the distillery, I was like, well, of course it's Fast Penny Spirits.
And voila, you have a name, just like that.
Yeah.
I'm just so inspired by that story, and I wanted her to share that. And I know that we're going a few minutes over, but I think this is a really important question in the chat. Are any of you looking at a non-alcoholic drink in the near term?
I can answer real
Yeah.
quick. So cider has this fun little thing that it deals with, where cider traditionally is like what you drink on the orchard, and then hard cider is what we make. So the Liquor Control Board doesn't love when we make cider non-alcoholic always, but we are currently looking into, there's a company out of California that actually de-alcoholizes cider. And what it does is, rather than having juice like we'd have for cider, you have a lot of still the same fermentation notes minus the alcohol. And so it's something we're looking into, because we love our product, and we want people to enjoy it that are, even if they're not alcoholic drinkers. So that's something we're looking at. We don't have one yet, but it's a road we're traveling down at the moment.
I thought that was a really good question. So thank you for answering that, Caitlin. And I just hope that you are all as inspired as I am about all of these amazing women who have joined us tonight. Thank you all for sharing your stories. I just think it's so important to note that when women work together, there's collaboration, there's community, there's engagement. And you don't always hear that in, companies that are larger, companies that are run by men. And I just want to honor the fact that you have all been through so much. You've all taken a mission and a vision and made it happen. And like Jamie said, taking those small steps, you can have vision and perseverance, and we're all capable of that. And I hope that's something that you take away tonight. I certainly have. And I just want to thank Amber. You were a lovely, lovely moderator tonight. And for, Laura and Caitlin and Shay and Jamie, thank you so much for joining us. And for everyone else, thank you for being here. It was so inspiring. If you are interested in other Revel 11 events, please check out revel11.com. We'll end it there, and have a lovely evening tonight. Thank you. And thank you to Janet and Suzanne for Ellevate and for our 4th annual event. I think it was quite spectacular. Have a good evening, everyone.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Bye, everyone. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I'm so inspired. I'm gonna go walk around and do a jig right now. What are we all gonna do next?
Go watch the Kraken. Go Kraken.
Go Kraken. Okay. Have a good night, everyone. Thank you.
Good night,
Bye.
everybody.
Good night.
Thank
Good
you.
night.